To view the patient's labs, we'll come over to this Labs tab, and it'll always default to the most recent lab that was taken for the patient. So in this case, it was a rapid COVID-19 test that resulted as positive. Um, and you always want to pay attention to the date that the lab was collected. Just this is obviously important when you're working up the patient to pay attention to how long ago that lab was actually taken. So there's a few different ways you can say we wanted to go in here and find a basic metabolic panel. There's a few different ways to do that. One is that you can continue to click through this previous button until you find the lab that you're looking for. So if we keep kind of clicking back through here, we eventually get to a basic metabolic panel. And so again, this is where it's important to pay attention to the date that this was taken. So we may want to reference this creatinine of 1 and say that the patient has normal renal function, but this was also 5 years ago at this point. So just always pay attention to that. The other way that we can come and look up specific labs that we want to see is to come to this worksheet tab. And actually in the help guide that we've emailed out to y'all, it kind of walks you through how to set these labs up for yourself. But just real quick, if I wanted to set up a basic metabolic panel like I have sort of listed here, you would just come in this lab section and you have to look up by typically what the abbreviation for that lab is. So if I wanted to add sodium and then potassium will just be K, and give it a minute to load. And then you just hit this add button. Say I added lactic acid and I didn't want it, you would just come over here and you could click remove 1. But now I built this test to be displayed for myself, and you just click OK. And so then it'll bring up those results for me. And you can, if this was a real patient, we had several different values for him, you could just continue to come back and view however far back in the past you wanted to look. The other thing you can do is you can come click worksheet and you can find one of the, typically the pharmacists have pretty good labs that you can look at. So like we'll look at for Eric Metterhausen, we can come here and we can look at, looks like he has a fasting lipid panel set up, and you just click OK. And then it'll provide you with those values to look at. So that's kind of a quicker way to come in and look at specific lab values that you're wanting to find versus being on this most recent tab and clicking previous until you find what you're looking for. And then the other thing here is if you have a patient who had a culture taken, you can come here to the microbiology tab and it'll list that culture that was taken. And then down here, it'll list, in this section, it'll list the cultures and susceptibility data.